Hey everyone, welcome to the Wu-Man Chu Chronicles. This is Wu-Man Chu coming to you live from parts unknown, like The Undertaker. And what we're doing with these chronicles is raising funds for the comedians and the musicians on Surreth Fest Music and Comedy Festival in Pueblo, Colorado, happening in September instead of July because of the COVID-19. And we're raising funds for the Hanging Tree Cafe, but they're now going as the Grindhouse. So grab some food from them and all that good stuff and tip them well. But my guest tonight is my fellow favorite comic out of my hometown of Pueblo, Colorado. He goes by Charley McMullen. That's his real name, as you can see on the screen. Hi, Charlie. How are you?
What's up, everybody? Wu-Man Chu, I think you did yourself a disservice in that intro. I think your parts are very numb. At least to me, I could pick your junk out of a lineup.
Good one, Charlie. What kind of shirt do you have on?
I'm wearing Dan Cummins' tour shirt from last year.
Ah, fantastic.
I got this sometime in 2019 when I was doing shows in Denver. I saw him at Comedy Works. I've always been a huge fan of Dan Cummins. Just the amount of material that dude has out there is impressive.
Fantastic. He's a swell guy. I saw him in Jacksonville, and that's why I noticed his shirt. And so if you go to my YouTube channel, you can check out my interview with him. He's a pretty cool cat.
Nice.
Yep. I snuck in and asked him if he wanted to be asked some questions.
Also a very good podcast.
Indeed. I love his
I don't listen to many of them, but Time Suck is one.
Indeed. He's quite the fella. So it says here that you're a comedian, a writer, and a comic book artist, an actor, overcompensator.
That is all correct. Lately, it's been more comedian and comic book artist than anything else.
Fantastic. I love your work, by the way. It takes me back.
Thanks very much, man.
You're very welcome. I remember my very first comedy show in Pueblo was my roast, and you were on it as my roast master.
Damn right. Yeah. That was such a good show, man.
Unbelievable. Those jokes were just, I still watch it to this day, and there's like 500 views on YouTube at the moment. And just
my favorite thing about that night was you had me and John and Bojan, like you had your comedian friends and your like scary metal friends.
It was perfect.
And we were all writing jokes about dudes we didn't know. Like that was so much fun.
Brian Posehn would be happy, I think.
Yeah. Good times.
For sure. And you're a comic book artist, and I love your illustrations, by the way. And you've helped me design posters for Surreth Fest like the past 5 years. And it's just
4 years, I think. The past 4 Surreth Fest posters have been at your request have been Clive Barker meets Ralph Steadman. And it's gotten to the point where I look forward to it every year like Christmas.
That's those are my favorite artists. And Clive and Hunter S. Thompson are my favorite writers too. And so
we've been going in chronological order as it happens in the book. The first one, which was Surreth Fest 2, was the first illustration you see in the book. The drawing of Raoul Duke carrying the kit bag, holding the cigarette. I did Chatter in that one. And then still in the opening scene of the movie, I did Hellraiser and Butterball in the convertible with Chatter as the hitchhiker that Tobey Maguire plays in the movie. And then last year was the reptile hallucination, but everybody was just like, they were still reptiles, but with a Cenobite kind of makeover. I still have that T-shirt. I wear it a lot whenever I can.
Awesome.
And this year was great. It's my favorite scene in the movie where Benicio del Toro is in the bathtub after eating the whole sheet of acid. We've been adding someone else every year. We got who was it?
We added the engineer.
Engineer, yes.
Yep. He's getting ready to throw some grapefruits at Benicio in the bathtub. So that's it's a cool thing how everything comes together like that, and it's the way that you go highly detailed is just amazing each year.
last time I saw you in person was actually in Florida. Like it was weird because we know each other from Colorado, but I just happened to bump into you in Florida, and we kept running into people who were like, "This is the dude that does those shirts." Like,
Yeah.
like that was a cool experience.
Indeed. They're like floating around all over the country at the moment. And there's some in Chicago and there's some all over Florida.
Yeah,
And
it's weird to be at just any random city in the Midwest and just find a dude in the bar wearing one.
really,
Hmm.
that's pretty cool. Like, I think we started something neat. And it's a joy seeing people just wearing your artwork all over the place and like our minds just collaborating and we're like adding a little bit more details to here and there. And there's a little familiar hand coming through the mirror in the bathroom scene there, but we'll leave that at that.
Teasers.
Teasers and Easter eggs. But yeah, you weave stories and one-liners. Like, how did you discover your voice in stand-up like that?
I don't know. I mean, when you decide that you're going to, because you decide to try it before you decide to do it. Nobody goes in and has like their first joke tank or their first entire set bomb. Like no one goes in, has all the shit that comedy comes with happen to them, and then says, "Oh, I'm going to do this forever." Like it takes a while to get there, and I don't know. Like a lot of people don't find their voice until they've been doing it for like more than a year. You just, I don't know. You just keep trying stuff until you find something that feels like you. And I don't know. Just the point of view of the confused outsider always kind of felt right.
Indeed, I totally feel you. When I do stand-up, I do music jokes, but when Sweat does jokes, he does all nothing but dirty stuff.
Mm.
So you got to find your voice somewhere, and it always hits you out of the blue, and it's a good feeling when you build on it, you know. Indeed. So you've been all over. It says that you've been influenced by states, but mostly Colorado weed. So,
Oh yeah, that's
indeed.
like people are gonna be writing books about that time in history. Like to have been, because let's see, 2014 is when it became recreationally legal in Colorado. That was 6 years ago, so I'd been doing comedy about 4 years at that point. And I don't know. I mean, because by 2014 I'd already been doing it for a while, so I had had successes and failures. I'd been producing shows long enough to know, like, to be ready for the next thing in producing comedy shows. Like and I think everybody was at that time. They were just looking for the next step that comedy shows were going to be. And then weed became legal, and cannabis clubs started opening up, and comedy in cannabis clubs was just a magical thing to be there for the beginning of. I
Absolutely.
mean, after almost a decade of just living and breathing comedy and seeing shows all the time, those are still some of the best ones I've ever seen.
I agree. I did a show at the Speakeasy on during Halloween week, and that was a lot of fun.
Yep.
Got to see Ben Verbeek, so I get to see him in September. So I'm looking forward to seeing that guy and you too. So I'm pretty
Yep.
excited about that whole week. It's gonna be a lot of fun.
Ben Verbeek, one of I think 6 total Thompson boys that have been in and out of comedy over the years.
I noticed the trend, like everyone quits and retires and then comes back, and because the stage keeps calling them back, and it's
like John Brown, Ben Verbeek, and Casey Dean Fraze were the founding members of the Thompson boys. Like it was just like a banner to produce shows under, like, just, because if you can't do it with your friends, why bother? And I don't like the word branding. It's a horrible sounding word, but it's kind of what it is. I don't know. I mean, to have been doing comedy the year weed exploded was just great. Like a lot of people found out that they were the kind of performer who writes more and performs better when they're stoned. So people who were just getting good finally got that goose to push them up. You know what I mean?
yeah, that was like an incredible moment to see Colorado blossom that way, like the whole state, and just seeing everyone succeed. And
Yep.
so where did the Thompson Boys name come from?
The actual name, because the thought of the four of us being like some kind of a group or a company came from one night in Pueblo, probably at the downtown bar. We were just sitting around after a show thinking, how can we generate more income out of this? And it was either me or Ben Verbeck who had the idea of us all getting trained as locksmiths and doing that on the side. And our gimmick would be like, we would come with like joints to chill you out, because locking your keys in your car is really stressful. And all you have to do is just order the I think we're going to call it the discretionary service. And we show up, we unlock your car, we smoke you out, and give you a better day. And we're going to undercut every locksmith we could find, because at some point, all of us had been fucked by a locksmith. Like, they have you, they know you, like, if you didn't absolutely need them, you wouldn't call them, so they can charge wherever they want, and they know it. And we had all been burned by locksmiths at some point, so we just said that's how we should make money. Because a couple of us knew how to grow our own weed, so we were just going to do it that way. And the name the Thompson Boys came from that song by the Thompson Twins. We were trying to figure out what the name of the band was, and some of us were saying Thompson Twins, some of us were saying Thompson Boys, and it was just one of those things that just explodes before you even know it's an argument. And we had to go behind the bar to check, and it was the Thompson Twins, but the name Thompson Boys stuck. And then after that wing eating contest, we just decided to make it a show banner.
Awesome. So they describe you as a hilariously chill buddy, and any crowd will enjoy. And that's what I love most about you. It's like you can do just from theaters to bars to everything in between, and that's the coolest thing about you.
I appreciate that, man. That is what I've learned in comedy after doing it so long is, like, I'm definitely not a dude who does politically charged material, because not because I don't have any political ideals, but just because any political joke, regardless of what it's about or where it's coming from, is designed to change the way people think and replace it with the way you think. And I've never really been on board with that. Like, comedy is for comedy. I've always thought, like, comedy for comedians. Like, a lot of people will say, well, you can enact social change through comedy, and that's true, but you can enact more social change through social work and just let people that are funny do comedy. So, like, I've always tried to write from that perspective. My favorite stuff is just like a really potentially offensive topic with a misunderstood by me punchline. Like some of my favorite jokes are the most ridiculous shit that I've ever written. Like, like, who loves gluten-free crackers the most? Gluten-free crackers.
Oh man, that's good stuff. So you're a co-writer and a co-star of the first season of You Look Like, that's now streaming on the LOL network, Kevin Hart's channel.
That is correct.
How did you get involved with that, and what was a night like, and all that good stuff? Stories of behind the scenes.
Well, from summer of 2016 to summer of 2019, I lived in Memphis, Tennessee, and that is where Craig Brewer is from. If you know Craig Brewer, he directed Hustle and Flow. He directed the Footloose remake, like a ton of stuff like that. Like he co-produced Empire, like that kind of thing. He was back in Memphis visiting family, and he went to the P&H Cafe, which is like a legendary venue in that town. It stands for Poor and Hungry. Before Hustle and Flow, Craig Brewer made a documentary about that venue, just the history behind it and everything. So when he was in town in 2016, this was 2017. He saw the live show called You Look Like, which is a comedy roast battle, but every joke has to start with "You look like," where the way it's done live is it's 3 rounds, 2 comedians per round going head to head, and then the 4th round is the 3 winners up against an audience member. That's one of my favorite parts. of the live show, and then the two winners of that round go head to head to crown a champion. And shortly after moving to Memphis, I had I'd gotten onto a couple showcases and I was hitting a lot of mics, but I hadn't really had like a big show yet. And a friend of mine called me because someone had dropped out, and they explained it to me. And they said, "Do you want to do it next week?" I said, "Sure." So just as it played out, I was up against the current champion, who was Holly Lene from St. Louis. It was a great show. I ended up winning, and I just kind of found my thing. Like, I kept winning the live show, because when you win, you come back the next month. And I just like kept winning. At a certain point, the producers were telling me that, you know, people are going to start to think this is rigged. You can't keep doing it. So like, I had done my last live show. It was great. And shortly after that, Craig Brewer saw one of the ones that I was not on and decided he wanted to do a web series version, like produce it and finance it himself and then shop it around, because he just thought it was a great show. He's like, there's no way nobody would buy this. Like, I'll make it myself. So in 2017, they had chosen 16 comics who had done the live version before to just kind of form a writer's room and film 10 episodes. The web series version was shorter, and the round with the audience member was taken out, so it would move faster. And like 16 comics and a couple more who were on, like, not on the show, but still on board as writers. We, like, using rotating studio audiences, we shot 10 episodes over 3 days. And then it just, you know, like, once he was done, he shopped it around for a long time. It didn't sell. Like, they kept working on it, tweaking it and stuff like that. It still didn't sell until LOL Network picked it up almost 2 years later to the day. And then it started showing on YouTube, and it kind of caught on. Like, I wouldn't say it caught on any more than like any of the other row shows you see, but you know, like, people watched it. I got, you know, my fair share of hate and love in the YouTube comments equally. It's a good time.
Indeed. I don't read the comments, but I should browse a little bit. But I love that episode, and you're no stranger of roasts, and you did one in Colorado, and then you did the roast you look like in Memphis, and I saw another one of you at the Comedy Store in LA. And
yeah, I've done it twice at the Comedy Store now. It's fun. I mean, like, I wouldn't call myself a roast comic by definition, but it's fun to do because you can say a lot of shit that you couldn't say during a regular comedy show and still dig your way out, you know?
Indeed. That's good stuff. Let's see here. So you've written for a website too. I believe it's Geek Juice Media.
Yep. geekjuicemedia.com. That was started in Pueblo long time ago, like before, I think before I was even a comedian. A dude you probably remember named Matthew Coates. He just started, like, he spends all his time on the internet. He just wanted to start his own, like, review site was the initial intention, and then, like, a lot of other podcasts started, and I did those for years. Like, podcasts, I never took on the responsibility of, like, hosting and editing my own. That always seemed to be, like, too much like work to still enjoy it in the same way. But I was a frequent guest on a lot of them. Like, there were a few of them on Geek Juice, one of which was Live Nude Geeks, which it was like we would live stream public domain movies, and 2 or 3 of us at a time would run commentary, and people would be able to add comments in a stream, like running next to the movie. That was a lot of fun. I did. Let's see, What the Fuck and Radiodrome at 1201beyond.com with Josh Hadley. I lasted there for years. Like, it's a really good weekly thing to keep your comedy in general, but emceeing skills in particular, like, just to keep your shit sharp, you know?
Absolutely. And so they can find, is that where they can find more about your comic book artist career, or where else can they find the information about your comic book artist career?
Well, I don't think the site is live yet. I'm still working on it with a few other people, but within see, everybody's timetable in mid 2020 got fucked up, so nobody can really say when anything is going to be live again. But soon I hope to have GorillaCageComics.com up and running. I'm gonna do like blow up prints of like some of the posters I've done over the years and stuff. Try to move some of my body work that way. But I mean, you can always like hit me up on Facebook or Twitter. Just Charley McMullen. People hit me up all the time for like private art commissions. It's always good when you need a few more bucks,
Indeed, absolutely. And so let's see. So it says here, well, like what was like your schooling like? Because I noticed that there was like some rough times in those different colleges. Was like
college... Well, yeah. I mean, I dropped out of 3 different colleges. I don't mean to brag.
Indeed.
But I started like almost a year out of high school after not doing much. I had started at CSU at the Pueblo campus, which was good like as a primer for like mass communication and stuff, but it wasn't really a film school, and that's what I really wanted to do. So for like a whole semester, I was on the waiting list at Watkins College of Art and Design in Nashville, Tennessee, and I had been called up to the show after a semester in Pueblo, so I had transferred my credits to an actual film school and did that for a long time. Like that was fun. I still had like a lot of family family stuff going on in Colorado, so I eventually moved back and I went to the Art Institute in Denver, which was, I mean, as close to a film school as anything, but still not what I would call an actual thing. So after a while, like the economy was tanking, so I just decided to drop out. And after that, I didn't go back. I don't know, if someone can stay in college, you'll probably have a wider array of jobs for a while. But once you make it past 35 anyway, like the job market is so tapped out, it doesn't matter if you have a degree or not. Like, I've worked in restaurants with some of the most educated people I'll ever meet. You know what I mean? So I don't know. It's hard to say how important college is actually going to be from now on.
Indeed, especially during this climate, it's like
right.
Everyone is just like, there wasn't even proper graduations for anybody. They just had to like walk in front of like a green screen. It's like, oh man.
I know. Indeed. I watched Eric Andre's commencement address. That was the one that made the most sense.
Indeed, that guy is wild. I love that guy. But yeah, you let's see here. You were also like I remember you doing karaoke, and then and you also like you still do karaoke DJing and all that stuff?
I did in Memphis. I haven't done it since I left there. It's a great job. Like it's never been a job that I could rely on as a primary income, but it's it's so much fun. Just like podcasting, it keeps your emceeing skills up. It teaches you how to deal with venues, which serves you well as a comedian. I know so many lyrics to so many songs now, though, like shit that I learned and then can't forget.
Indeed, I'll always remember the night when I went to the First and Main, and everyone was singing "Sweet Caroline" with you.
Oh, and, yeah,
total eclipse of the heart, and oh man.
I mean, it was because I know 1,000% none of these people would be hugging or probably even be hanging out if they were sober. But once you get past that, the unity that you can see just on people's faces with Sweet Caroline or Like a Prayer, that was a surprise to me.
Indeed.
I would never, a lot of people shit on karaoke look down. I would never do that. I've been into karaoke for so long, and I make no apologies about it.
And I remember your karaoke joke about Sean Bean and the night of my roast. It's like, gets me every time. Oh man. But yeah, you spent most of your adult life in your bio. It says that you in call centers, and I used to work in a call center.
Right.
I believe mine was Intertrack, and I was like selling Smith and Hawken like furniture and stuff. Like, what did you do in call centers?
Yep, Intertrack was one of them. Pueblo, as you well remember, Pueblo is. I mean, it's a once great steel town that now carves out an economy out of bars and call centers. So to be a working class adult in Pueblo is to work in all of them. There was Intertrack, which was so far away to be convenient for anybody. Like, I mean, when George W. Bush was in office and gas was like a ridiculous amount, there was no way you could stay afloat working out by the airport.
Nope.
There was I'm probably not gonna. I probably shouldn't name it because I don't know if I can get sued, but there was the one place that was the receiving end of all the infomercials. That place was weird.
Oh, for sure.
There was the really sketchy, locally owned place that was just an outsourcing center. Like, it's a weird job that I definitely would not have been able to tolerate if I had not been like drawing my comic strips during that time.
Indeed, that's what it says in the year. So from keeping it to go hostile in the environment, because man, being a call center worker dealing with inbound calls and people being frustrated is like the worst. It's like, hey, you're the one that ordered it, not me. You know. It's
I
like,
know.
Get out of here.
It wears you down so much. There was one of them that I was fired from. I'm not going to name it, but the big one. You know what I'm saying?
Oh yeah.
I was fired for sounding too sad. I'm not kidding. That's literally. I got the unemployment claim. It took a while, but I got it.
Oh man.
I was fired for being too depressed to talk to people. That's what it does to you, man.
It does. Like I had my meetings like in the manager's office so many times, and they're like, you know, you can type fast, but no one can hear you talk. You lisp all the time, and you speak with a lisp. I don't think this job is meant for you. I'm like, oh, okay. Well, I am done after this summer, anyways. I'm going back to school.
Mm-hmm.
And so 7 years later, I got my BS. So I'm like, which is BS because it doesn't do anything for me. So oh well. Like my last newspaper gig was giving me like $80 a year.
Yeah.
College is I don't know.
Yeah, that's like $80 more than what I made for doing a comic strip for the same platform.
Indeed. But I got free concerts, so that was good. It evened out. So something's got to give. But yeah, from there, when you were doodling on the back of those sales slips, the men from Cyclopolis, is that Cyclopolis? Like, what's the story behind that?
The Men from Cyclopolis was my first comic strip. It ran in Beyond the Fold magazine for like almost a year. Like it was not popular. I love it. I still love it to this day, but a lot of people did not get it. It was a one-panel comic strip with two like green one-eyed aliens like misusing and misinterpreting some kind of Earth thing. And then the caption was always an excerpt from the Scout's log, which was so dense, like using all the unfinished English degrees that I never got. Like, the reason it was ultimately canceled after the first year is the editors in charge said it was too wordy, and it was more trouble than it was worth. Nobody got it, and it was too wordy. So like after that got canceled, my editor, he's a dude named Justin Morenz. I'll name him because he's a very good guy. He really liked it, but he couldn't get anyone to let him keep running it. So he and I worked together on another comic strip called Freaky Deaky, which was more, which was closer to the Far Side in terms of just like one panel with the, it was just more smartly edited than the Men from Cyclopolis was.
Indeed. we have a viewer, so feel free to chime in with your questions if you have any questions for myself or Charlie. So, and we'll get to you in the comment section, in the chat box, type away. But yeah, that's pretty awesome that Freaky Deaky like was born out of that, and um in 2012 that's when you started doing stand up, and then you became addicted to it and started promoting live comedy shows and
Yeah, by 2012, because I had started doing stand up before then, but by 2012, that was the point when like me and John Brown and Garrett Waller started thinking more long term about comedy, because we all started around the same time, and around 2012 is when we decided that we can take the worst that it has to offer, and we're going to keep doing it. And that's when I started. Like I was still working in call centers, but instead of just drawing shit to amuse myself, I started drawing flyers for the shows that John Brown and I were producing. I don't know, and that's when I fell into, like making the flyer, or at least attempting to make the flyer a work of art unto itself, and just like making that as much a part of the process as anything. Because I hate to see flyers that are just like 10-minute Photoshop jobs of skewed profile pictures of people that are on the show. Because like comedy posters and rock posters are some of the best art that I've ever seen. And around like 2012 is when I started sort of looking at it that way and putting it to what I tried to make good use.
indeed.
And it's something I still try to do now, like not just with the Seraph Fest posters, but there's a lot of them, like the Lamplighter posters. I did 25 consecutive ones. It's a monthly variety show in Memphis. Like I look back at all of those and I'm really proud.
Do you save all of them and stuff like that?
Mm-hmm.
That's awesome.
Yep, I've got a huge stack of them. I'm gonna mount them somehow one of these days.
Put them in an art gallery. I'd go see it. I'd pay to go see them like through the years. Oh man, that'd be awesome. Just to go like on a time machine and just seeing all that cool stuff.
That would be a good gallery show, because there's a few of mine that would be worthy of a gallery show, but more than that, there's other comics who really put effort into their show flyers too, like David Rodriguez in Fort Collins is a good example. John Bueno in Pueblo is a good example. Like there's a lot of comics who do posters that way.
Indeed.
I would go to a gallery show for that.
There's plenty of art galleries in Pueblo, so hopefully they pick up on that, because man, your work is just, I mean, and the guys that you mentioned like are absolutely incredible. And like you said, like I don't want to see like profile pictures on, like I take photos of everyone in Florida pretty much, and I'm like, it's cool to see their pictures on there, but like you said, like the 10-minute Photoshop work is just like, ugh. I'd much rather see someone that put their heart and soul into it, like you do, and like John Byer does, and I have never seen David's work.
Thanks, man. It's very good. Mitchell Dunham in Memphis is another one. Like there are enough people out there still putting the effort into show posters.
Indeed. And so you produced all over Pueblo and southern Colorado. I remember that, and like John did too. And before COVID hit us, and you were part of two comic collectives, the Steel City Stand Up, and we talked about the Thompson Boys. What was like the days like with Steel City Stand Up?
Steel City Stand Up was cool. Like it was like my first couple years in comedy. I was learning a lot. It was mostly just me, John Brown, Garrett Waller, and Liz Binfield pulling our resources whenever we can. James Amos was also around a lot back then. I don't know, like just taking turns carpooling a couple nights a week from Pueblo to either Springs or Denver, where the really good mics were. Because I mean, there are good mics in Pueblo now, but it took a while to get there. You had to fill up the week, otherwise you couldn't really call yourself a comic. I remember Garrett especially was really strict about that with himself more than anyone else. Yeah, I mean, Steel City Stand Up, it was just like I came up with a logo, John got it out there, and I don't know, we just tried to make it something for people to look for when they wanted comedy.
Indeed, I looked forward to it when they had stuff at your productions at the Impossible Playhouse, and those were some
Right.
good times. Good times.
Well, I
And
mean, like the three of us were starting to build our own relationships with Looney's Comedy Corner in Colorado Springs. That was the really the only approachable club that, you know, Pueblo scum had access to. I mean, there was always Denver with like Comedy Works and the Improv and stuff. But anytime I performed at Comedy Works, it was not because the Denver comedy scene thought I was worth it in any way. I had always like lucked myself into Comedy Works somehow. Like I did New Faces and just, you know, failed upwards until I moved on to the next round. I was always part of the, well, not always, but a couple years I was part of the leftover Cinderella team with the funny Final Four at Comedy Works. I don't know. Like a lot of people thought I performed there more than I rightly deserved to, and I might have. But I tried to get as much out of it as I could.
indeed, I've only done the Looney's open mic one time, and Suresh got to perform on Thick Skin when Greg ran it.
Yeah.
But Mike wasn't there in town because he was on vacation or something. But they drew my name out of there, or Surratt's name out of there, and it was pretty awesome. Yeah, that's like the only time I got to hit up Comedy Works downtown, though. So.
Did you ever do the South Comedy Works?
I know.
Oh, so much worse.
Really?
Like, you know, like crowd wise, it's a complete 180. Like I've never done poorly downtown. At like any of the times I've been lucky enough to perform at Comedy Works, if it's downtown, I've always done okay. But if it's south by the gigantic IKEA in the upscale Greenwood Village neighborhood, it's just a pretentious crowd that we just didn't connect with each other. Even the room itself has higher ceilings, and it's just not as good. It is missing everything I love about Comedy Works downtown, if that makes sense.
It does make sense. Like I love being like squished in with everyone too in downtown. I've never been to the South Side one, but yeah, but the stage is nice though, and I saw videos of like, you know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the stage is very nice. It makes it all that much more difficult when you die on it.
Indeed, it's tough to get access. Like the stage was pretty small when in the downtown area, but man, it's just perfectly compact.
Yeah, perfectly.
Indeed. So you describe your style as Chuck Jones meets Rob Zombie graphic style over the next few years.
Someone I had worked with at one of the call centers said that.
Ah, indeed. That's pretty neat. I love your style. It's just so amazing. Like, I see your Instagram posts, and I'm like, man, you are such an amazing artist. And that's why I went to you. I mean, I love Barrett's work too, but I was like,
Barrett is amazing. He's very good.
Indeed, I love his stuff. But I was like, I kind of want the instead of like the computer work, I want like something hand drawn, and that was like, I love like the old school type of way. And like everyone still wears shirts from what he designed, but like now that we transitioned into yours,
I still do. I still wear my my Seraph Fest Year One shirt and my Sons of Comedy Anarchy tournament shirt that Barrett did.
Indeed, he's amazing. I love the guy.
Right now, I'm working on my first like original full length graphic novel. It's called The Hard Stuff. It's about a 1940s cartoon character nearing obsolescence who he discovers a quantum portal that allows him to go through time to stop from becoming obsolete, but shit goes wrong, so he can no longer control where the portal sends him, and it's like every time he goes to a different dimension, it's a different style of animation.
Hey, that's pretty neat.
This just comes from like a lifelong, full-on love of cartoons. Like I love animation. Like I'm not an anime guy, but I really respect the amount of work and artistry that goes into animation. And I've just ever since I was a kid, I've been a fan of cartoons and the ridiculousness that can occur like within cartoons. The protagonist from the Hard Stuff is actually, well, he's a cartoon character named Mo. He's been on a lot of comedy flyers. He's an alcoholic, so whenever I can work that in. You'd be surprised how often that goes naturally on a comedy flyer.
That's awesome. What's your favorite cartoon? Like top 5, I guess.
Like cartoon shows.
Mm-hmm.
Not in any particular order, but like I've always loved Futurama. Like I love self-referential animation, like Animaniacs. Like the writing, particularly the inside references on Pinky and the Brain for the time it came out. Like it was Pinky and the Brain was insanely ahead of its time. Big Mouth, I thought was damn near perfect. South Park might be one of my biggest sources of inspiration ever. Like, especially being from Colorado, like Trey Parker and Matt Stone are folk heroes in my circle. In fact, I think I had one of Matt Stone's professors when I was at the Art Institute in Denver. I mean, to be able to do what they've done and say what they've been able to say through animation is it's awe-inspiring.
Indeed. I love the documentary, like how they have like a week to draw everything and get everything going. Wow. They put in the work.
I mean, I love animation because there's just there's that added layer of insulation between you and reality to where you just accept so much more willingly and you can enjoy the story that's being told so much more easily. Like also voiceover actors. One thing I'd still harbor an ambition to get into voiceover somehow. Like that's some of my favorite shit. I was talking to somebody recently about like what would Futurama be if not for Billy West? You know what I mean? Because every amazing character on that show is played by the same actor. No one else, like no other show. That's why I love animation. No other show can make that claim because you always know it's the same actor. But like to watch Futurama and think that Fry, Professor Farnsworth, Dr. Zoidberg, and Zap Brannigan are all being played by the same guy. That's one of the best actors of his generation. Same thing. You can say the same thing about like Maurice LaMarche or John DiMaggio, like any of the career voiceover actors. Like I could nerd out on voiceover actors all day.
Indeed. Kind of like you with the 6 Degrees of Kevin Bacon.
Right.
Those are fun to watch on Facebook.
Right. Animation is probably the best thing that ever happened to the profession of acting. It allows people to play roles they would never be able to play in otherwise, you know?
Absolutely. So in your spare time, when as a comedian and a writer in Los Angeles, you've done indie posters, like independent posters for film and video games, and designed merchandise for bands and music festivals and all that good stuff. Like, what got you into like film and video games and designing for bands and festivals and such?
Well, I mean, I think it's just like finding the artist community wherever you are, because any town, like there's a huge population difference between Pueblo, Colorado, and Memphis, Tennessee, but every town has it. They just have, you know, you can call it a scene if you want to, but there's just a group of people that are all into producing stuff for other people to be fans of. And any town you're in, these people just seem to find each other. Like, you know, comedians and musicians hang out at the same open mics sometimes. And, you know, like you'll always have a comedian who has his own PA will meet a musician who needs one, and they'll work together, and that'll be one of the most fruitful relationships either of them will ever have. You know, I guess I could thank my social anxiety for that, you know, because a lot of times when I'm at an open mic, because there's a lot, because you know this, it's the same for musicians or comedians. A lot of times it's just showing up, putting your name on a list, and then a lot of waiting, not being able to drink because you don't want to be drunk by the time you go on stage. So it's just a lot of tense hours spent sitting at tables. So I'll just be sitting there drawing something, and it'll just take one guy to look over and say, "Hey, man, that's pretty cool. I need a new design for my T-shirt. How much do you charge?" And then just kind of goes from there. Like my first professional gig in Memphis was a poster, but it was not even for a comedy show. It was for a rock show, a band called Heels, who I found out later the drummer of which was Josh McClain, who's an amazing comedian, but I didn't know that at the time. It was just my first poster gig. And, like we've worked together on tons of shit since then. Like Josh McClain, he's also on the You Look Like web series.
Indeed. I remember you sharing a music video for Heels, and I clicked on it, and man, they have an amazing sound. Like, wow.
Oh, they're fantastic. In fact, if you put my venue up there, but if you don't like, if you don't think I deserve your $5, Heels does, find their Venmo and send it to them. I will not be upset.
Most definitely.
Like they become one of my favorite bands of all time now.
Awesome. Which independent like film posters have you worked on while you were out in LA?
My time in LA, most of that was spent not so much doing posters, but this is a horrifying story. I think you saw me tell this on stage the last time I saw you in Florida. Before I lived here, about a month before I lived here, I was out here just on a comedy trip, and during that trip, I had gone to the strip club on Sunset Boulevard down the street from Comedy Store, called the Body Shop. And while I was there, I got a lap dance, and just from the stripper client customer small talk that evolved, she asked me what I did, and I didn't want to say comedian because a Comedy Store was right there. So I just said comic book artist. And during a lap dance, the dancer pitched me her children's book, which was adapted from a novel that she had written a couple years earlier, and said she needed an illustrator. And we had settled on a deadline and a page rate by the time the song was over.
Wow, that's amazing. I remember that story.
So my first 6 months or so in LA, that was what I was working on. At this time, I think there's been a couple title changes, so I don't know what it'll actually be. But you'll see my name as illustrator under a children's book someday, and now everyone who watches this will know how and when I got that job and how sticky I was after the interview.
Heck yeah. Speaking of film, you've also did the annual 24-hour film festival in Pueblo, as well as the Spring Fling Film Festival. You worked on Scotch Guard, Time Crime, Tense Past, April's Fools, Reverse Pharmacology, Kitten of the Freaky Deaky, and Furious George, Kitten of the Freaky Deaky were the two comedy shorts. What were those times like?
Those were good times. Earlier today, I was just talking to Paul Abeta on the phone. He used to live in Pueblo too. We worked together a lot on most of the movies you just mentioned. It was just a great thing to look forward to every year. The 24-hour one, everybody formed their teams. They all met at the same place. It had kind of a Midnight Madness vibe to it. They released the theme that everybody had to have, and then everybody made the best movie they could in 24 hours. Like it was, it was. I imagine it the kind of feeling people get from marathons, but way better than actual marathons. I did a lot of short films that I would like anyway. Under the 24-hour deadline rule or not, because I started doing these film festivals around the same time I started doing comedy and writing jokes, and just the concept of the joke and the concept of the short film were a lot alike. Like, it's difficult to make a dramatic short and have it actually have some emotional punch, because that's the kind of thing you have to build. Otherwise, it doesn't mean anything. And it's really, it's slightly easier, but still not easy to make a horror short film that's actually scary, because again, it's something that has to simmer over time. But like, the short film is perfect for comedy because it's written the same way. I mean, you express a premise, you take it to a weird place, and then you have a punchline that just hits from an unexpected angle. It's the same kind of thing. So like doing the 24-hour festival or the Spring Fling Film Festival, it just making a short comedy film every year. Again, it was just a way to do comedy, just different, different method, but the same kind of feeling.
They're quite a rush. I did like 3 of them. Won the award for best film to watch while stoned in the very first one, and then we just got honor, like just official selections for the other 2. But putting together a short film in 24 hours is such a rush, and it's such a good feeling to get everyone on the same page for 24 hours. It's great.
Yep. The second year that Aveda and I had done the contest on the same team, it was called Time Crime, where this was his idea initially. It was Jack the Ripper and Sir Francis Drake as time traveling cops, whose chief of police was Fu Manchu, tasking them with bringing in. This is weird because you and I wouldn't meet until way later, but bringing in his twin brother Wu-Man Chu.
That'd be pretty wild.
Yeah. Like I remember after meeting you and hearing you introduce yourself once as Wu-Man Chu wearing the mask, I was like, small world.
Yeah. Good times. And oh man, and those superhero jokes that night at the roast were fantastic too. Oh man. But you've also worked on like some films called "It's a Simple Little Robbery" and Cloud Games. Like, what were those?
Yep.
What were those experiences like? What are those stories behind those?
Those were 2 much bigger productions. Like for different reasons. The Simple Little Robbery was something that Luke McMurtry did. He's a filmmaker, also in Pueblo. He and I were like competing in film festivals a lot, and then after he'd written something longer than like the festival every year, something he would want to put more like hours into. Once he had the script, it's not a comedy, but he decided he wanted comedians in it. Just because, like he's always said, it's always been easier for a comedian to do dramatic acting than it is for a dramatic actor to be funny. Some stuff you can learn, some stuff you can't. So when he did A Simple Little Robbery, it's like 20. I think the final cut was just under 30 minutes. It's like a short feature. Where it's me, John Brown, Frankie Aragon, who was not a stand-up but a comedic actor that we'd worked with on stage before, and like it's really good. It's about a guy who gets out of prison, having heard a story about a church that's laundering money, being run by a mob accountant posing as a priest. And they decided he gets out of prison. He gets together with with his old crew and decides to rob it when it's full of cash. And I don't know, like that was shot over the course of a few years, just because you run into this in music and comedy a lot. Same thing with filmmaking. You can only pour so much time into it before you have to. You have a day job. You have like marriage and family like stuff that you have to do. So. You can only work on it when you can. We worked on The Simple Little Robbery for a lot of years before it was finally done. And once it was finally like finished, like I think down to the same month that it was finished, I had gotten on to the crew for Cloud Games, which was I don't want to say anything libelous, but it was not a great lead comedy that was being done in Colorado Springs by a comic and a filmmaker from Michigan, who I'm not going to name. But it was a contact through Looney's, where this comic had, he'd been in town. He said he wanted to shoot a sample scene in the club, and did they know anybody who could do that? And my friend Lauren, who worked at Looney's, knew that I was into the filmmaking stuff, so he recommended me. So I came in, I shot the sample scene the director really liked it. He said, okay, if I come back here to actually shoot this movie, I want, give me your information. I want you on the camera crew. So a couple weeks went by. He was back in town. He's like, all right, we're going to do this. And just using Looney's and the nearby strip mall as just kind of a base of operations. We started an audition process and a 10-day shoot that just went off the rails early. I mean, the movie was eventually finished in some form. I think you might be able to find it somewhere on Amazon for a couple of bucks, which it is not worth. I don't recommend it. But it was just it was an example of failing upwards, which I've learned that I'm able to do just through sheer luck of circumstance. Like, I started on the camera crew after a couple of days of auditions. I had been reading with people who were auditioning. By the end of the second day, the director said I'm definitely going to want you in it. I just don't know what part you're going to play. So it's like, all right, do you want me in it and shooting it, because that's going to get difficult? He's like, that's true. So I recommended Luke to be director of photography. Like, Luke McMurtry gave me his reel. I passed it along. The guy hired him as DP right away. So Luke came on board, and I don't know, man. Like, it was an ambitious shoot that I mean, it suffered a catastrophe the first day that was kept secret. It ended up torpedoing the whole thing. For fear of libel, I'm not gonna be more specific than that. But if you are making your own movie, definitely do it, because independent film is the best film. But be smart about it.
Indeed.
But once I was no longer on the camera crew, I was part of the cast, and then the more table reads we did, the more I would improvise lines for whatever character I was reading that day. And so he brought me on as a co-writer, said he wanted me to do a punch-up pass on the script. And I wrote a new scene that could be shot. Some movies do this. This was actually good thinking. Some movies will pick a scene that kind of lifts in and out of the movie and shoot that before day one of the actual shoot. The reason why it should lift it in and out of the movie is because if it looks different from everything else, it doesn't skew the rest of the movie. So he had me write such a scene, which I did. I wrote it for his character, my character, and one of the other main cast. It took place at Pins and Needles Tattoo in Colorado Springs. Jason Bency is a comedian, tattoo artist. He had a chair there at the time, so I wrote him into it. And after that, like, that went really well. So the director was emboldened by that going into the shoot. And I don't know, like, I had to write and rewrite a lot of the script because one of the lead actors was fired halfway into the shoot, and we had to replace him with somebody immediately. But the only person who was even remotely available was a good, I'll say, at least 6 years older than the actor who was fired. So I had to rewrite the whole character, change it to someone's brother rather than their father. Like, it was a movie that it was plagued with trouble. I did not get scriptwriting credit at the end because I had to come up with a subplot that explained everything. At the end, one of the credits that scrolls by is just, quote, "I need a kidney," written by Charley McMullen.
Oh,
and my
man.
name is misspelled with an IE.
Happens all the time in Hollywood, and I didn't know it happened.
It felt so good to get my lowest point out of the way early.
That's good. That's good. Kind of reminds me of Chris films on Shudder. I was watching the one about the crow and stuff like that. And, oh man! But going back to the Impossible Players, like Playhouse, you were part of the Players, and you did stage work, and you did 10 plays. What were those days like? And
well, I mean, like, there would be like a month and a half, 2 month stretch where if comedy was not, like, if it was a slow season for show attendance, you could join the cast of a community theater production and go to rehearsals and just to keep yourself warmed up between between busy seasons. And the Impossible Players in Pueblo, Colorado is where like I met a lot of people that I would work with on films later on. It's a good way to meet actors and people who, like, as opposed to just friends of yours that think they could do comedy, there's an actual chance with experienced actors. So I don't know, like it was just a good way to hang out in the artist community, when you weren't doing your favorite thing. And I did some really rewarding shit, like, what I consider rewarding shit when I was there. I did, because whenever you auditioned, if you didn't get a good part, you could still hang out and help out with like makeup or special effects. Like every Halloween, they did a horror show that was always a lot of special effects. One year was Bram Stoker's Dracula with a steampunk aesthetic. I'd gone to the audition hoping to get Renfield because that's like the cherry role of Dracula, and I did not get it. I just got an extra role as someone that Renfield kills, but I stuck on and did props and special effects and a steampunk Dracula, like designing Van Helsing tools for a steampunk Dracula. That was fun shit. I used like a gas siphoner as the guts of a machine to be used on stage to simulate a blood transfusion to go from like for Van Helsing to pull out of his bag and use. Like it was a lot of fun. I think it was the next year I did special effects makeup for a live production of Night of the Living Dead. I did all the zombies in black and white with like black bile blood and stuff. That was great.
What a great movie, and this reminds me of times like these. And it's a sad ending, but man, that movie is so powerful. Like George Romero is way ahead of his time.
Ridiculously ahead of his time.
Indeed. You also did the 39 Steps, and you started that, and
the 39 Steps will give you some street cred if you're doing like Midwest club comedy. I was talking to a booker in Little Rock, Arkansas one time, and he had done theater too, so we were just kind of bullshitting about it. And I said I had done 39 Steps, and he's like, "Wait. Were you the guy?" And I was like, "Yeah, I was the guy." And he was like impressed. It would be like if I told someone I had worked on Apocalypse Now. You know what I mean? If you don't know the 39 Steps, it's a Hitchcock movie that was rewritten for the stage as like a Monty Python style comedy. And the way it's always cast is there's a male lead, a female lead, and then depending on how you're doing it, 2 to 4 supporting actors who play every other character in the whole show. And the male lead is in every scene. So I had like a Simon Pegg type British accent, and I was in every scene except for maybe 2. That was a crowning achievement. And then I'd mentioned the Halloween shows for 2 years. Once there was a director named Brandy Garner who wanted to do horror comedies. So for 2 years we did those. There was House of Frankenstein and House of Dracula. I played Victor Frankenstein in both of them. John Brown was also in both. He played Wolfman. Like it was great.
That's awesome. When I move back to Colorado and Pueblo, I'm definitely gonna go to the Impossible Playhouse and check out some.
You'll definitely see some shit for like the same price, like the same less than a movie. You'll see some shit with community theater that it's like rarely is it fantastic, but it's always surprising.
Indeed, I remember seeing Sunset Boulevard at one of the venues, and man, they put on a really good show. I think it was at an Impossible Playhouse.
I think it was. That was a good one.
Indeed. So when you were in Memphis, you started as Sir Walter in the guerrilla production of Two Gentlemen of Lebowski. What were those days like?
That is a crazy show. This is Two Gentlemen of Lebowski. Is the entire movie, the Coen Brothers, The Big Lebowski, rewritten as a Shakespearean tragedy. A really good show. It's like every scene of the movie, but with Shakespearean language. Some of it is in iambic pentameter rhyming. I played the John Goodman part, who in the play is Sir Walter of Poland, and like that was worth it just for the challenge. Some of my favorite shit is like the Shakespearean version of John Goodman's like obscene dialogue from The Big Lebowski. Like in the movie, which came out in '98, he's yelling at a 15-year-old kid inside a house, and he says, "This is what happens, Larry, when you fuck a stranger in the ass." And then converted into Shakespearean flowery language, it says, "This be what befalleth, Lawrence, when thou first a stranger twixt the buttocks." Like an entire show of that. You know, like, "Hold thy tongue, Sir Donald, thou art out of thy element."
Good times.
It was a very good time.
Indeed. So do you have any final shout outs or anything you'd like to do for the Wu-Man Chu Chronicles?
Well, I mean, I'm like, my respect goes to anybody who sticks with comedy during these uncertain times. I mean, I know we all had to walk away for a while, and everybody's getting more into into revenue streams that can actually feed them. But anyone who's still doing something to express, the artistry that comedy used to give us, I respect them. Like anybody who is just I don't know, it's difficult to give shout outs during a pandemic, but whoever is keeping it going amid uncertain times, I mean, this is where the best shit is going to come from, man. Like all the best art is going to come from this kind of terror.
Indeed. And
so
I
mean, if we survive it, we'll be that much better for it.
Absolutely. And hopefully I see you in September, because that's one of our upcoming shows or festivals, if you will. And hopefully everything's okay back home. Florida, they have a hard time staying home, and I'm like, good grief, put on a mask like me. It's not that hard. So let's see here. As a friendly reminder, definitely go to the Grindhouse, which is formerly known as the Hanging Tree Cafe. We're raising funds for them. Tip them well, order great food. They have anything from vegan to vegetarian options, and
their breakfast sandwiches are incredible.
Absolutely. The whole cast and crew there are absolutely fantastic as well. And also donate to Charlie's cash thing on the bottom there. I believe it is that's scrolling on the bottom there, and his Venmo, and follow him on all the social media sites that there are on the bottom there. This will be kind of permanently on YouTube and on my website too. So thank you so much for
any tips sent to my Venmo will go directly to the Starving Comedians Fund.
Awesome. You're a great guy, Charlie. And,
thank you, Wu-Man Chu. I appreciate that, buddy.
You're welcome, pal. See you in September. Looking forward to seeing you there. Dude. Awesome, bud. And for the Wu-Man Chu Chronicles, up and away until I can find myself a proper tagline that I'm not hacking from some other superhero. All right. Great seeing you all. Take care.